The collected works of Sri Ramana Maharshi, Chapter 11, Translations from the Agamas. The Agamas are traditional Hindu scriptures regarded as no less authoritative and authentic than the Vedas. They are regarded as divinely revealed teachings, and no human authorship is ascribed to them. Temple worship is mainly founded upon them. There are 28 Agamas that are accepted as authorities. From among them, Sarvajnanottaram and Lotra are outstanding as expressing the standpoint of pure Advaita or Non-Duality. Atma Sakshatkara is the most essential part of Sarvajnanottara. The Maharishi spontaneously translated both these Agamas into Tamil verse. Lotra, in the very early days when he was living in Virupaksha cave, and Atma Sakshatkar in 1933 when he was already in the ashram at the foot of the hill. Both are instructions in the path of knowledge given by Lord Siva, the later to his son Guha, another name for Lord Subrahmanya, and the former to his wife Parvati. Verses 70 to 72 in Lotara, forbidding the harming even of plant life, are not to be taken as applying to aspirants on the path. No extremes of discipline or behavior are demanded of them. Indeed, as is generally indicated in these two Agamas, questions of discipline, ritual, and behavior are far less important on this path than any other, since it is a path which works directly on the heart, awakening spiritual knowledge. Atma Sakshatkar, all comprehensive knowledge. The chapter on Self Realization or Atma Sakshatkar in an Upa Agama text known as Sarvajnanottaram, the Pinnacle of all knowledge, translated from the Sanskrit original into Tamil by Bhagavan Sri Ramana. Benedictory verse of Sri Bhagavan. This is the direct awareness of the self, graciously expounded to Guha by Ishvara himself, the foremost and first Lord, now teaching this in Tamil, seated as the self in my heart. That Shiva further says, Guha, I shall tell you about a different way to reach that reality which pervades, partless in all. Too subtle, though to be grasped by the mind, by which the knowledge of awareness is well attained, knowing which is to become Shiva himself, what has not been told to any by me, today from me, that wisdom here, handed down by the lineage of Gurus and beyond the ken of logicians. This is for liberation from the bondage of the birth-death cycle. Its supreme vision shines at all places. He who is the one pervading in all things, he who has manifested as all, he who has faces in all directions, who is beyond thought, who remains himself as all the verities and transcends them too, is the Self. He transcends all varieties. He is beyond the reach of speech and mind and name. I am that Shiva self. Thus you should meditate with perfectly undifferentiated mind on Shiva. Firmly established as the eternal entity, imperishable and undifferentiated, the all-pervasive partless knowledge that cannot be fathomed by the mind. It shines with nothing prior to compare, devoid of any marks, indestructible, the totally serene, the knowledge transcending all objects, beyond the pale of thought and conception and doubt. That supreme I am, no doubt about this. That supreme divinity, Shiva indeed am I, of the nature of all the mantras and transcending all the mantras, devoid of dissolution and creation. What is visible, what is invisible, the moving and the stationary, all these are pervaded by me. I am the Lord of this universe. All shine because of me, filled with a variety of forms, one different from the other, filled with a galaxy of words. All this universe, from Shiva down to the earth, are all established in me. Whatever is seen in this world, whatever is heard in this world, whatever shines conceptualized as inside and outside, all these are pervaded by me, the all-pervading one. Realize this. Though considering himself the self, he desires to attain that Shiva, the supreme self, as one apart. Whoever contemplates on Shiva, thus in delusion, will not attain Shivahood by such contemplation. Know this. Shiva is the other than me, I am other than Shiva. Uproot this attitude of differentiation. I indeed am that Shiva. This conviction that is non-dual, ever practice. Full of this non-dual conviction, he who everywhere abides ever in the self shall see in all things, in all bodies, only that Shiva self. Of this there is no doubt. Whoever has this conviction always of the one self shall rid himself of delusion and dual perception. That yogi will attain to omniscience. So it is said in the Vedas. This you should know. He who is praised in all scriptures as the unborn, the Ishvara, that formless and attributeless self, he indeed am I. There is no doubt of this. Only he who does not know his true nature is the jiva that is subject to dharmas, characteristics of birth, death, and so on. He who knows his true self is one who is eternal. He is the pure. He is Shiva. No doubt of this. Know this. Hence, what men of discrimination should inquire carefully and directly realize is the self, that itself shines twofold, as the transcendental and the inferior divisions, the gross and the subtle. The supreme nirvana is the higher. The inferior is manifest as the creation. Mantras are spoken of as its cross form. What abides in changeless awareness is the subtle. Shanmukha, without realizing it, Atma, what avails explanations thereof in endless ways, tell me. All these are only wonderful display of words, the cause for the delusion of the mind. All the dharmas, qualities abide in the self, whichever of them the jiva imagines, whereby he concentrates his thoughts again and again on it. He will attain that object. There is no doubt of this. Thus has been told by me as the knowledge of the self, what has been gathered succinctly in a condensed form, all by any means is of the nature of the self. Realizing this, may you ever be strengthened in the thoughts of the self. The deities, the Vedas, the fire sacrifices, the various gifts to priests in the course of their performance, none of this exists there in the nature of the self. Be tuned to the blemishless, omnifaceted, steadfast knowledge of the self. To the jiva drowning in the vast ocean of birth-death cycle and seeking a refuge, what affords refuge is only that knowledge of the self, not anything else. Know this. He who becomes of the nature of the Supreme and realize it as it really is, shall, though experiencing all changing states, attains liberation without effort. Be aware of this. There is no greater blessing anywhere apart from the gaining of the self. Meditate ever on the self. He who is the self, he indeed is the one all-pervasive supreme self. Be aware of this. It is not the prana, the vital air that circulates, nor the apana, the air that travels down even, nor the instrument superior even to these, the senses, mind and such. Reach ever for the thought of the self, that is the omniscient and the perfect. It is neither inside nor outside, not afar, nor nearby, nor does it fit in any place. That Supreme is formless, all-pervasive, and effulgent. Direct your thoughts ever to it. It is across, above and below, inside and outside, which are divisions established firmly everywhere, ever. The void, the self-luminous self, meditate on that more and more ever. Not a void, not a non-void. It is also the non-void and the void, pervasive everywhere, but without predilections. Think of this self ever. Afflictionless and without any support for itself. Bereft of caste, name and form, that taintless, attributeless self you should unceasingly meditate upon. With no refuge, with nothing to support it, beyond the range of comprehension, without parallel, faultless by nature, the eternal, the self that is so. Meditate upon it joyfully forever. Embracing this passion and thus desisting from all karmic activity, shying away from society, one should thereafter ever meditate upon the self within oneself, in oneself, by oneself. Be aware of this. Country and lineage, the traditional caste and styles of life, effacing various thoughts arising in the wake of these, the wise man should meditate daily upon his real nature. This is the mantra, this is the deity, this is indeed what is called meditation. This indeed is tapas, casting afar all such thoughts. Concentrate on the nature of your own self. The self is without thought. Make it impossible for the thought-oriented mind to think at all. Cause the mind that thinks to get settled on the self. Let not the mind think of anything else. The self is not something that can be thought of, nor is it something that cannot be thought of. It is not thought itself. It is indeed itself thought. What does not lean towards any of the above? The supreme that is the self. Meditate upon it ever. Meditate ever on that which is beyond the reach of the mind, allowing no refuge for the mind. The joy that is attained in dependence in that self that is beyond all varieties and complete, without any differences and beyond the reach of thinking, without any precedent, without anything similar, that which is the utmost frontier and extolled as the supreme bliss, be immersed in it, discarding all desire for objects, destroying the modes of the mind, the non-dual state of being the one. When the mind ceases to be, it is the one called the supreme bliss. All directions, all places, all times are conducive for the yoga of the self, so say the scriptures. Differences of castes and orders of life and such cannot cause any differences in the least to the nature of knowledge. The color of milk is one, the colors of the cows many. So is the nature of knowledge. Observe the wise ones. Beings of various marks and attributes are like the cows, their realization is the same. This is an example we should know. Brahman intimately pervades all. It shines with faces in all directions. Established in it without a pause, think not of differences such as regions and directions. In this word itself there is no mark, lifestyle or tradition for the one who becomes of the nature of the self. He has nothing to gain by any action of his. No action need he perform, nor any injunctions prescribing actions apply to him. Know this. Moving or standing or sleeping, walking or taking food or water. In the face of the wind, the cold, and the sun, unaffected will he be in any state at any time. Fear, indigence, sickness, and burning fever, indigestion, even when all these affect one established in the self, peaceful and shining in full, he is never at his wit's end on any account. He will savour the satisfaction of the self. Whether going forward or returning, I am not the one that moves, forward or back. When inquired into, there is no going or coming. In the ever-changing dharma of Prakriti, the cause of elusive creation, I never was immersed, nor am I now. All activities prescribed are the work of Prakriti, the illusion. Prakriti, so spoken of, is the source of all action. I am the immaculate. I am the actionless. Thus indeed will reflect the wise man, the knower of truth. For him there is no bondage of Prakriti, the delusion. He has earned the name of the liberated one. He shall never be touched by the defects spoken of as the action of Prakriti. The manner in which a lamp shines, destroying darkness with its light, in like manner, by destroying the enveloping darkness arising from inexplicable ignorance, the self of the nature of the pure light of knowledge shines. Even as the lamp with the fuel of ghee spent attains nirvana, peace, the yogi, continuously contemplating on the truth of the self, will be at peace in the self. Nothing greater is there to be attained than the self. This is the truth. When the pot is carried, the space within the pot, though conceived of as carried, is it not the pot only that is carried? The self too, like space, remains motionless. When the pot breaks, the space in the pot merges one with the great space. When the inert body passes away, the self, seemingly in the body, becomes immediately one with the Supreme Self. Thus, the Lord, who is omniscient, spoke with authority then. One who is liberated, severed from all bondage, becomes all pervasive, endless, with absolute awareness, discarding totally all the agamas, attaining the pure samadhi of Atma Yoga, realizing by due inquiry there is nothing else greater than this. Destroy all wrong ideas in the mind of differences. Meditating continuously on the great knowledge thus, that yogi who attains ever the bodiless nature, that pure jnani whose dharma is the dharma of that bodiless nature alone, is the liberated one, shining inside and out, reaching across to every place. Omniscience and bliss and mature wisdom, remaining independent, limitless strength. Attaining all these, he shines ever, the self without afflictions. With an immaculate body, he, as the self, merges in Shiva. Japa of the name, worship, bathing in holy waters, ritual sacrifices, none of these or others are needed. The fruits of dharma and adharma, water oblations to forefathers, none of these are for him. No injunctions for observance, no fast, nothing required by way of getting into or out of any action. No vows of celibacy for him, no this. Not having any recourse to falling into the fire or water, or falling from the mountain top, enjoy the feast of the knowledge of Shiva, eternal and pure, rid of the rules applying to all creation. Move about as you please. I tell you this, the truth, the truth, the truth, thrice over. There is nothing greater than this. Nothing greater is there to be known, nothing at all, nowhere ever. Rid of any blemish, rid of ignorance. With pure intellect, being the pure self, by the pure conviction that all that is seen is pure, meditating on the immaculate nature, he shall attain awareness. Translated by Dr. H. Ramamurthy.